I know we wanted to touch on Cuomo next because of the cancel thing, but I do want to stay on. I want to stay with Congress for a bit, right? Because there is something to be said for this whole for voting against what your constituents want. All right. So I want to touch on HR5, which is, and I'm going to pull it up so I don't mess it up. It's HR5 for the 117th Congress, this Congress that started this year. It's called the Equality Act. It was sponsored by Representative David Cicilline of Rhode Island. And basically what it does is it expands the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include protections on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, this thing was up for a vote in the House, and it got exactly 0 Republican votes. It passed with 0 Republican votes. And what this bill basically does is the same thing as the Civil Rights Act, right? Which is that, we can't, the Civil Rights Act was basically, we're not going to discriminate against you on the basis of your race, right? So, oh, you're Black, you can't get this job. That became illegal, right? This is expanded to, oh, you're gay or you're transgender, you can't get this job. 0 Republican votes, right? So, which is very different from how the constituents see it, right? There's a good number of Republican constituents who would be in favor of this, because to them, they just see it as, all right, we're just expanding freedom to more people. Like what's the big deal? But I do want to touch on what some of the talking points have been from people who are against it. Not just the elected officials, but from voters who have come out on social media and said they're against it. One of the big talking points, well, there's 2. One is the bathroom thing, because that's the thing that will never go away, right? The idea that someone who's transgender, so they were born with male reproductive parts, and they transition to being female. That person can now go to female bathrooms, and to them, they're saying that's sending men to little girls' bathrooms. They're thinking, well, men are gonna start trying to rape little girls, right? Because obviously that's the extreme that their mind goes to. My thoughts on that, I don't want to dive too deep into that, but I think men have been doing that anyway. Like rapists have been doing that. They've been going into bathrooms and raping little boys, little girls, or whatever. No one is going to go through a full-on transition just to be able to do that. Right?
That's an investment if that's what they're doing.
Right. I don't know.
The one thing that I hate when they do that too, because this is the thing. I'm Mexican, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Mexican community is very Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very, you could say anti-LGBT, not me in particular or my family, but like a lot of
proper, very conservative ideals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, who's the Catholic, right? Who might have certain opinions. Do you know how many transgender people I had around me when I was a kid? Like I can count that. Yeah, I can count them on top of my head, but that's more than some people could, right? Mm-hmm. I think it was around. I could think of like for long term, like she had friends that were transgender, at least 3 or 4 different friends at different times during my youth, right? They weren't interested in me as a little boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It depends on what they're interested in. If they're men turn into transitioning into a woman. Usually the ones that were interested in men were interested in grown men. The ones that were interested in women were interested in grown women. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like there is no correlation really between raping kids and transgender. Look at who we've had to deal with most recently in regards to sexual allegations, right? It's been coaches, male coaches, mm-hmm. who have sexually assaulted their there was a guy who just recently killed himself because he got charged with the counts of sexual allegations. I believe rape may be even included in there. He killed him. He was a coach. I don't remember if he was a gymnast coach or whatnot. But it's kind of like the other one that got convicted.
Yeah, or the one that they're saying Jim Jordan knew about and didn't do anything about it when he was coaching in Ohio State.
Or so, Petrino. Remember Petrino had Sadakis? Was it?
No. Sandusky.
Yeah, he was married and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Transgender people aren't out there. Like, if they are, it's not because they're not raping kids because they're transgender. They're raping kids because they're rapists.
Exactly. Yeah. And before I get into the second bone of contention that I've been seeing a lot of, that last thing you said, that was spot on. They're not raping because of their sexual orientation. They're raping because they are rapists.
Yeah.
Right. You have straight people who rape. You've got gay people who rape. When
it's boys of privilege, boys are just being boys.
Right. The common denominator is rape, not the sexual orientation. But I think that is born from this idea that goes back decades, that you're inherently depraved if you're in the LGBTQ community. If you're in the LGBTQ community, then inherently you're over sexualized, or you like sex too much, or anywhere you can get it. That's the idea that a lot of these people have been growing up with for generations. So to them, they're like, oh, this is the in that they need to be able to go into the bathroom with my daughter and do something to her. I don't know. The whole thing is kind of silly to me. I understand why they think that way. I obviously disagree, because as we've noted, you don't rape because this is your sexual orientation. You rape because you're a rapist, plain and simple.
Yeah.
So the second bone of contention, I will admit, this one I am. I wouldn't say that I'm all the way on the side of no, that's a silly argument. I can kind of see where some people are coming from. I think this is one that I probably need to do more research on the science of it and all that stuff. So the second bone of contention is that they feel it would disadvantage natural born females in the arena of sports. Yeah. So if you have a transgender girl doing like high school wrestling or whatever, girls do wrestling? I think so, right?
Girls wrestling.
Yeah. So if you have like a girl that was born a male, but then transitioned to a female,
they feel that the transition person would have more of an advantage.
An advantage, yes. Yeah. So that is an argument I've seen. That's one that I'm not comfortable enough just saying outright that, oh, that's a stupid argument, because to be honest, I don't know. I feel okay saying that I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that one. In the sense of I don't know, not that I agree, but that I don't know, because there is the case of in MMA, Fallon Fox was a transgendered woman who started fighting, because so she was a man up until a certain amount of years. She went to Thailand, I think, got a transition, came back, and she was fighting in women's MMA. She broke a woman's skull. Another woman's skull. Some women said that was the hardest punching I'd ever dealt with in my life. Then she got beat by somebody else. She got beat by a cis woman. And the problem is you have MMA people talking about it, and a lot of time MMAs are just some MMA fighters are just like.
Sir, I just want to you said cis woman. Just for people who are not familiar with the terminology, cis is cisgendered, which means a woman that was born a woman.
Woman that was assigned
a woman at birth.
A woman at birth, yeah, or female at birth.
Yeah.
So the problem was, like, I've actually touched on like looked up a little bit on it, just because I kind of want to know, like, are they legit with that kind of argument? You know what I mean? Like, because I get it's unfair for the transition woman to basically be like, hey, I know you feel like you're a woman. We agree that you're a woman, but you're too strong of a woman to be fighting a woman, right? It is kind of like that I can kind of get the argument that it's unfair on that end. Also, it's kind of like, I gotta think hard. Do I want my daughter wrestling someone who possibly has possibly? Because the thing is, though, the science that I read on it is kind of, some of it's contradictory. Some of it says that yes, they still have the biology of a man, so so they're still as strong as a man. But then there's other ones that saying after 2 years they're actually technically weaker than a natural woman based on the way that they do things. So I don't know.
Yeah. So I think, and this is where you get into like the weeds of it, and you really have to like you almost have to do like regulation on it, that some might consider invasive. But this is probably where you have to decide, okay, you have to have undergone a certain amount of hormone therapy to be classified for this sporting activity as a female, right? So,
but then is that fair, right? That's the question.
Right, yeah, because and people who know anatomy or biology would know way better than us in this. But I guess there's a certain level of estrogen to testosterone level that women have versus men, right? And if you're assigned male at birth, your testosterone level might be higher, and then you go through your hormone therapy as part of your transition to become a woman. If it's one of those situations where, like, after a certain amount of time, your estrogen level or that balance gets to a place where you're more like a woman, maybe that should be a rule that, okay, once we can test and say that you are on par with a someone who was born a female at birth, then you can participate.
Yeah.
But it's that's one of those arguments that person made, that someone online made. I was like, I kind of see your points, but I don't think that one red herring should be the basis of overturning a law that is protecting this community from so much more, right?
Yeah.
From being able to be fired, from being discriminated by people offering a service, or right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that one thing about sports should undo everything else.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that, is definitely for sure. One thing that also could always happen is certain different states, certain different schools, whatever, they can put in, right? They could do, they always do find a way to regulate certain things without basically saying this is the reason why, right? You know what I mean? Like they'll find something that makes it so. But honestly, this is a newer conversation that it's kind of hard. It's kind of, we're basically at the beginning of this conversation in regards to, and I don't want to say like how much equality can you give a transgender, because that's not right. But nobody's talking about the flip side. Nobody's talking about about men having an unfair advantage towards a transgendered man.
Right.
Oh,
like okay. If
someone
a woman
who was assigned woman, female at birth, becoming a man and wanting to go against men, because then what's going to happen when all of a sudden, okay, you're making me still go against other, because I think there was recently something like that where there was a transgendered woman or I forget what it was. They've said, oh no, you have to face this person because you're that, and they did, and they beat everybody. But they're like, but I wanted to go against this over here because this is who I really am. You know what I mean? Like, this is who I identify as. And I think it might have been, it was some competition that gave that person, I guess, an unfair advantage being who they were naturally assigned as. But it's just like, they're not talking about the possibility of a men's basketball team all of a sudden having, because that's what's going to happen. All of a sudden people are going to start making fun, oh, you got beat by a girl, because that person was born female.